Hello, welcome to the third section of videos, Work with Multiple APIs with the CatFax application. In this video, we will set up and review a project created with Expo. The objectives of this video are to discuss, manage, and bear Expo workflows, review Expo workflows, set up a new application with Expo. Expo has excellent documentation. The docs can be utilized as a great resource and something to refer back to should you run into any issues. Let's start with discussing what Expo is. The Expo documentation refers to Expo as a framework for universal React applications. Expo truly is a solid framework because it provides an essential structure for building React Native applications, with sets of tools that help with development and deployment. Now that we know what Expo is, let's install the Expo CLI tool. The Expo CLI tool is what we utilize to generate our application. This will work similar to the React Native CLI we utilized in the last section of videos with npx. So in my terminal, I'm going to input npm install -g expo-cli. Once that's done, we can start by generating our project by using the expo init command. So in terminal, you'll need to input expo init. Now in the terminal, you should see the prompt for which template to utilize, and each section is under a workflow. The current workflows available are managed and bear workflows. Let's pause here for a moment and review what kind of app each of these generate. With the managed workflow, the complexity of native code is abstracted. While building this app, you will not have access to the native code, and all the code will be written in JavaScript or TypeScript based on the selection of template you use to generate your app. When using this workflow, the Expo documentation states, Expo tries to manage as much of the complexity of building apps for you as possible. They do this by providing services for push notifications, the build service, and over-the-air updates. When working with the managed workflow, there is no need for Xcode or Android Studio. Items like the app icon and splash screen are handled by configuration by a file named app.json. The Expo SDK also simplifies access to device capabilities like the camera, biometric authentication, file system, and haptics. Now, as you can see, the Expo CLI provides three options: a blank for JavaScript or TypeScript, or a sample app that comes with React navigation pre-configured with several screens. Let's review what the output for each of these options look like, so when you start your application, you can choose what the right fit is for your needs. I have a project I spun up previously, so we can see what the output is for the blank managed workflow. When Expo generates your application, they add a file named assets.json and a expo-share directory. The Expo documentation states that this directory is meant to be shared. You should commit this file to Git so the asset state is consistent between collaborators in different machines, and images are never compressed more than once. In the assets folder, there will be two images, one for the app icon and the other for the splash screen. The ones that come with the app are two plain white images. Then there is a standard git ignore, which isn't anything new, but below is the app.js. The app.js is the starting point for the Expo application. You'll notice the difference here versus the React CLI is that the component is not being passed into app registry.register component. This is part of the simplification of Expo. The next big concept is the app.json. This is included with this workflow. This is where you will go to configure your app for concepts that do not belong in the code. Here is where you'll set up your splash and icon images, as well as the app name and platforms for your application. I recommend you take some time and head over to the Expo documentation and look through the configuration options that can be set here. The Babel file just has one preset called babel-preset-expo. The Expo docs state that this preset extends the default React Native preset, but it adds support for decorators, tree shaking, web packages, and loading font icons with the optional native dependencies if they are installed. Lastly, there is a package JSON with the initial dependencies installed to set up the app. The TypeScript blank template is identical, with the difference being that this is configured for TypeScript, so you will see an app.tsx file instead of your app.js, and a tsconfig file for the TypeScript configuration. The last managed workflow option is the tabs option. This is a great starting point for an application because it provides a solid structure for code organization. It has the standard managed workflow folders, but some additional directories have been set up for components, constants, screens, and navigation. Although the managed workflow is a great starting point, it comes with a set of limitations, such as not all iOS and Android APIs are available yet. For example, if your app wanted to utilize Bluetooth, you would not be able to achieve that with this workflow. Or, if you wanted a lightweight app, that will not happen with Expo because it will by default include all of its APIs whether you decide to use them or not. Expo does offer the option to eject from this workflow, and your application would have a similar structure to the one that's being generated with the React Native CLI. This bare workflow is essentially what the React Native CLI provides. So this allows you to utilize native code and use some of the Expo SDK, but not all of it. The two options are minimal and minimal with TypeScript. The bare minimal looks relatively similar to the React Native CLI, however, there's an app.json for configuration. The TypeScript option is identical with the inclusion of the tsconfig. Now that we are aware of our options, let's finish creating our app. Since we want to utilize React Native Router Flux for navigation, let's utilize the managed workflow with the blank template. In the command line, I will be prompted to input my app's name, which will be catfaxdemo. Then for the slug, I'll just input that again. Once I do that, a Git repo will be initialized and dependencies will install. After that's done, our project will now be set up, and now we're ready to move on.